on the mountain, in the valley, in the crowded streets, or the empty desert, in our hope and in our waiting, we are never alone. God is with us.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Good, good, good. Hey, I'm excited. This is a season we get to celebrate some things, and I really want this to come across the right way. So I want to celebrate with you guys as the family of God what kind of God did last week through our Christmas program. And this is not gloating, it's not bragging, it's just celebration that last week we had our second largest attendance ever. 1,500 people came to our Christmas program, which is really, really great. Something to be celebrated for sure. More than that, for us, last weekend, 20 people began a relationship with Jesus Christ for the first time, which is really amazing, really amazing. 18 at our services, and then 2 high school students at our Sunday night. And that is why we do what we do. And it's the only reason we do what we do is so that people would be able to know who Jesus Christ is and that we would further our relationship with him no matter where you're at in your journey with him. That's why we exist as a church. And again, thank you. Thank you so much for what you guys do to allow that to happen. I know there's so many hands from setup, tear down, all the way to giving. Every single person here has some sort of hand, even in just your attendance in doing what God's doing here. And so I just want to say thank you. But there's lots of celebration. This last week, the staff got to do some fun as we had our Christmas party. And I don't know about you. How many of you have already had your Christmas parties? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you already. How many of you are still planning your Christmas party? You're going to go to one? How many of you are like, no, I'm not going to any Christmas parties. I promise I will not do it. I forbade it. And so we had our Christmas party Wednesday. Lots of fun. We did it at the warehouse. And we like to do a white elephant gift exchange at that point. And so Leif and Erica, who are on staff, or Leif's on staff, Erica's his wife. And so it was their turn to get and go pick a gift. How many of you guys know how white elephants played, right? Yeah. So they go get the gift, and they could either steal a gift from someone else, which is very Christmas and Christian-like, I get it, or they could go and pick a gift. And so they went and picked a gift, brand new, and they went and got it and started unwrapping it. And out came a picture frame of the most glorious thing you've ever seen in your life. 2 of the most handsome men ever, right here. I mean, I don't know about you. Who wouldn't want to hang that in their house? Just so good, so good. But that wasn't it. I mean, they opened this up, and then there was more. More? Yes, more, all right? Then they opened this, which was just glorious. I don't know about you. I think Doug looks pretty good with the beard. I told him he should grow it out. He said he can't. I don't know what that means. But and so then I have this next one, which could be a little disturbing. You may want to close your eyes, but it's awesome. I love the tagline, I love your kids. Just a little creeper status. It's okay. We're normal here at Stonehill, I think. And then we took this picture after because that's where we got the beard from, is Donnie. Can't really see it very well in that picture. But we have fun, lots of fun things to celebrate in this time. And this whole series, God with Us, is centered around the whole idea of relationship. I mean, how cool is it that the creator of the universe wants to spend time with us, that he is a relational God, and because he's relational, he made us to be relational. And in Matthew 1:23, when it says the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him, was it? Emmanuel, which means God with us, that we have such a God, that we follow such a God, that such a God that created this world, created us also to be relational, God with us. And that series, and this series that we're in, is all about that. God being with us, Emmanuel, with us in the valleys, when it feels like there's mountains all around us. That's what Doug talked about last week, is when it feels like you're just in this low, in the storms, which is what we're going to talk about this week, when it just feels like life is taking its toll on you and me. And then next week, we're going to talk about God with us always. In every aspect of everything that we do, Christmas Eve, that God is with us. But today, in the storm, I want to catch you up a little bit on one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's found in Acts chapter 27. You could turn there now, Acts chapter 27. I want you to bring your Bibles, read along with me. I'll always have it up on the screen too, but I would rather you read it straight from your text. It's just better. It's better. It's better more for you. It's better. All right, so bring your own text. I'd love that. But Acts chapter 27, let me catch you up. Now, Paul's a prisoner right now, and he is journeying along with his captives, and they are taking him to Rome as the kind of the goal at the end of the day here. And so right now he's in the island of Crete, and they are trying to figure out what to do. It's almost winter time, and they have to figure out, do they want to go and winterize the boat in Phoenix, or do they want to stay in Fairhaven? So I have a little map for you, just for those of us that are visual. You can see right there in the middle is the island of Crete. It's kind of small there. Now this is Paul's missionary journey that he was on, journey to Rome. But you can see there in where they get stuck in Fairhaven. Now Paul, he's a pretty seasoned traveler at this point, literally spent thousands of miles on the sea, and so he has some wisdom when it comes to kind of how to sail. And so Paul stands up, and this is all before what we're about to read. Paul stands up in front of the soldiers that have him captive, in front of the sailors, in front of the captain of the ship, and he says, hey guys, we should not go to Phoenix. We shouldn't do that. We need to stay right here in Fairhaven because this place is the safety place. But everyone docked their boat in Phoenix because that's where it was kind of the safest to winterize your boat because they had some natural harbors and things like that protected from the wind. And so the captain of the ship and everyone else decided, you know what? We're going to still go from Fairhaven to Phoenix. And Paul's, don't do it. He's like, don't do it. But they said they're going to do it. So this is where we pick up. We're going to be in Acts chapter 27. We'll be in 13 all the way through 26. We're going to go verse to verse and read what happens here. It's my favorite way to kind of preach here. And so look at verse 13. It says this. Now when a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Now I want you to kind of picture this for a second even more. Now you could see, I took it off, but on the map, they're going to go to Phoenix, which is all just up and kind of to the right of them. So even when they would sail right along the shore. So they could actually see the island of Crete the entire time. They wouldn't sail that far away. They could even see the island. So there's this safety of like, we've done this before. It's just right there. It should all be good, right? Anyone ever done that before? Should be good. It's all good, right? We'll just take this little road trip. We won't even pray about it. You've never done that before, have you? All right. So then, before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the Northeaster swept down from the island, and the ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it, and then we were driven along. Again, these guys are totally thinking at this point that everything is good, 100% good. Like, we've done this before. It's not that long of a journey. It's all good. But, and now we're talking about a literal storm here. But in the storms of life, do you ever feel like that storms often come when we least expect it? Storms come when we least expect it. And maybe sometimes you could kind of heed warning of things that are coming your way. And even Paul, he's giving warning to these guys that they shouldn't do it. But for most of them, the grand majority, actually everyone except Paul, thought this was a good idea. And for them, it was a full blast surprise to them that this would happen. The journey from Fairhaven to Phoenix was only 40 miles by boat. And again, they had the island to them all the way on the right. And so for them, it was a total and complete surprise. And for you and me, when storms come in life, sometimes they take us by surprise. Danae and I, we've been following a story of this little girl. Her name is Rowan. They live in Southern California. And Danae, the other night, we were about ready to go to bed, and she looked over at me and she said, hey, have you heard of this little girl, Rowan? And I'm like, no. And she goes, well, look at this. And she started showing me Instagram posts from her mom. And I wanted to share her story with you because it relates so well to this whole idea of storm. And Rowan, this is Rowan, she's only 3 years old. 3. I have a 3-year-old. So as soon as I started reading the story, I'm going to be honest with you, I started just bawling my eyes out. Doug even asked me it was like Wednesday when I was reading the story after Danae told me. I went back to the office and was just kind of reading through. And he looked at me and he goes, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah-ish. But Rowan's mom, Amanda, she writes, in our second ER this weekend, being transferred to CHOC, that's Children's Hospital of Orange County, for Rowan, They don't know what is wrong yet, so please, if you have been, keep praying. We need these doctors to have wisdom. We need guidance on how to advocate for her. We want answers and not Band-Aids. We need logistics for our other children moving forward. Pray for all of that and whatever else the Lord leads you to. We'll be with her overnight, both Josh and I, by the grace of God and the community. And I read this, and I think this is exactly what happens. I mean, if you were just to look, and I did look on her Instagram post just days before this, everything's normal. They look, and they're taking pictures at the park, and the family's going out to dinner, and everything's just fine. And all of a sudden, boom, life happens. A storm comes upon them, and what they find out, and they didn't write it here, but what they find out is that Rowan has some major, major heart issues at this point. Major heart issues, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and even here, they don't know what exactly is going on, but there's these major, major things going on. Look, today I want to talk about, again, the storms. And when the storms come, what is it that you and I do? Like, how do we respond? And even my points today aren't necessarily options of what we should or should not do. I think it's more just how we respond, and what do we do when we respond these ways is kind of my goal today. And so when the storms come, because by the way, they're going to come, and we do talk about storms kind of often at Stonehill because I love to say it, but you're about 3 weeks away from a storm. You know that, right? You know that? I mean, that's how life works. You're about, any given time, 3 weeks away from a storm. Whether it be a little storm or a big storm or a massive storm, all of us go through storms in our life, and I want you to have the fodder, and I want you to have the faith, and I want you to have the stepping stones of what happens and what we should do when we hit the storm, since they come so often. So when the storms come, because they're going to come, we can battle them. I mean, that's part of what we do. We battle a storm. It's just part of it. And so for these guys in Acts chapter 27, look what happens. All right, so they're hit with this northeastern wind. It's hurricane force. It's blowing them away from the island of Crete into the island of it's called Cauda. And so look, as we pass to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. Now, let me pause for just a minute here. What's happening is the lee, what a lee is basically a protection. So Cauda, the small island, is causing a protection from the wind for just the briefest of moments while they're still getting pushed, just enough time to do something very, very cool to secure the lifeboat. Why? Because I want you to picture with me for just a moment. What's happening here is this is a pretty big boat, all right? Not a small boat, pretty big boat, holding probably several hundred men at this point, all right? Men of, by the way, all different kind of areas and statures, and some prisoners, some soldiers, some just normal people trying to get to Rome, all different kind of people on this boat. But this little dinghy, this little lifeboat that's hanging literally on behind them, it's not like now where a lifeboat hangs on the side. That's not how it is. Back then, they would just drag it behind the boat. They had to pull it in, all right? Still some pretty gnarly wind, pretty gnarly waves going on. Pull that in, and with the men, pull it up onto the ship and get it secure. So that's what's going on at this point. So the men, they hoisted it on board, or it aboard. Then they passed ropes underneath the ship itself to hold it together, all right? So just kind of imagine they're like gift wrapping the ship in a sense. And because they were, what's the word here? Come on, church, what's the word? Mark that in your mind, okay? Very, very interesting things happening here. Because they were afraid, they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. I want you to kind of underline that word for a second. I'm going to come back to it in a little bit. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. And then on the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. These guys are battling. They are absolutely 100% battling this storm. And I guess there's something I want you to know today. There's nothing wrong with battling a storm. There's nothing wrong with fighting back. There's nothing wrong with seeing something that's before us and going, I don't want this to happen, so I'm going to fight back. There's nothing wrong when the storms come in our life, when maybe our character is called into question at work. There's nothing wrong with wanting to fight back and say, no, here's why I have good character. There's nothing wrong when somebody is, coming at you with false accusations, so want to stand your ground with morals and say, hey, look, this is why I believe what I believe. There's nothing wrong when you have a kid with addiction to want to do the best you can to battle back and send them to 12-step programs and do everything you know how to get them back into a place of health. There's nothing wrong with battling back. Nothing. Honestly, I would expect it of us. I hope that we would battle back to a certain degree. And then I think of Rowan's story. And so this is a few days later that Amanda writes, and she says, this, by the way, this picture breaks my heart. She says, I'm thankful for the machines and medicine, but fully awake to the idea that you do not need the help, great physicians. He's speaking of God now. Ultimate healer, beginning of it all, end of it all. There's no time where you are, so we push aside our timeline here and we bow to you. We know what we want, and we relent. Our clenched fists, striving for control, have been set wide today. And I wept on the floor of a public multi-stall bathroom and willed myself into his presence. I'm tired of it all being scary since we are drenched in the unfamiliar. This life lags in minutes and moments that feel life-lasting. I'm feeling baited into fear, and I am just not buying it. Ever feel like that? I'm just not buying it. There's nothing wrong with battling back. There's nothing wrong with gritting and grinding and doing your best to press through. But I need to acknowledge my limitations. You and I need to acknowledge that there is only so much we can do. There's only so much we can do. Again, in this story, these guys, they do everything they know how to do to get that boat from breaking apart. They throw the anchors, they wrap it up tight, they bring the life ship on board. They do everything they know how to. When it talks about the tackle, I had to look this up because I was wondering, what do you mean, like a fishing gear? What is that? The tackle back then likely meant that the wind was so strong that they had already taken the mainsail down, thrown it in the water to act as like a brake. All right, so picture this with me. Like imagine one of those race cars that throws up the parachute in the back, and that's kind of the brake. That's a little bit what's going on right now. And then they need to lighten it, so they take the tackle, this mainstay, this pole that holds that mainsail up. They have to take it out of the boat, which is why it takes multiple men to do this, probably the entire ship. And then they hoist it overboard. So at this point, they kind of have no control. None. At this point, they just want to stay afloat. You ever feel like that in the storms of life? Can I just survive this? There's nothing wrong with battling back, but there's a reality that there's only so much sometimes that we can do. Why do I bring that up? Because I believe that there is a lot of guilt in this room, whether it be things past, things present, that we feel guilty that we could have done more, we should have done more. And what I want to say to you is there's only so much that we can do. So when the storms of life come, let's battle. Let's battle, but know our limitations. And so when the storms come, we could battle, and then we could give up. I mean, that's an option. I don't think it's the greatest option, but I told you I wanted to walk through some of the options of what happens sometimes when we hit the storms of life. That we can just throw our hands and we can give up. And again, in the story, that's a little bit of what happens. So they do everything they can to get this boat to stay afloat, to make sure they don't get driven into the sandbars and all that stuff. And then when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all, what's the word? Hope. That's a powerful word. So not only did they give up at this point, like, oh man, we just don't have any control. This is the difference of like, oh, I don't know what to do versus I'm done. We're going to die. This is it. I don't know how to handle it, so I'm just going to give it up. I'm throwing up my hands with whatever. They gave up all hope of being saved. All hope that somebody would come and rescue them. All hope. Like you and I, we could only lose hope when you and I give hope up. No one can take hope away from you. No one could steal hope. Hope is yours, and only yours. And the only way that you and I, we lose hope is when we say, here, take it. I can't have it anymore. I don't want it anymore. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have this hope. You have it. It's when we give it up, when we give it away. And Amanda, when she writes, she's going through, so now she's weeks into this. She's found out again that Rowan has a heart failure. She's not sure what to do. She's praying, seeking, hitting her knees, asking God, would you intervene? Would you help? Would you do something here? And it would be tempting all day to doubt, to feel disappointment, to be discouraged. Please come to our God and be against that with us. I'm so thankful that He knows how it will all unfold, that our God holds us in His righteous right hand. But check this out, ready? But in the midst of it all, my stomach feels sick. I want to reach up to grab His heart and peace in a way that will leave us all shaking. God, would you show up? God, would you do something? The temptation to lose and to give up hope is constantly surrounding us. And if you're not in it right now, again, you're going to go through it. There's going to be moments and seasons of life where you're going to be tempted to give up that hope. You're going to be tempted and wondering, God, where are you? How are you going to show up in this? And knowing that He is still Emmanuel, God with us. Look, even the most seasoned believers are tempted to lose hope. Even the most seasoned Christ followers are tempted to give up. I mean, I told you for a moment just to highlight the we that's in the story. In Acts chapter 27, so Luke is the writer again. He writes Luke, and then he writes Acts. And so we know that Luke's the writer. And so in Acts 27, he shifts language to, instead of being third party, right? He goes first person. He says we. So then he's including himself in the story. And this isn't to have dramatic effect or anything like that. He's actually there. So Luke now is writing because he experiences this, which is really interesting too, by the way, because even if you were to read Acts, the detail gets even more intense right here, which is really cool. Just read it, watch. And right around 27, it just gets more intense because he experienced it himself. So now he's even reflecting back on emotion. There's more emotional language here than even before. It's just really, really cool to see how that happens. But in 27, again, so this is Luke, all right? Now, he hasn't necessarily, well, I guess he would have written the book of Luke, but he's experiencing these things. So his faith is strong. I mean, he's writing these things, and yet he's in that language. We, the stars, the sun, we haven't seen them for days upon days upon days, and we. It didn't say they, it didn't say he. It said we gave up all hope of being saved. And honestly, the first time I read this, it hit me hard because I went, Luke, you lost hope too. And that's not a judgment of mine. It's more kind of, honestly, if I'm really honest, it made me go, because I relate. I relate to having seasons of life where it feels like I'm about to give up my hope. And it's nice to know that there are men of great faith and women of great faith that struggle too at times. I imagine for you, if you're walking in this room, it's been a long time since you've been to church. It's good for you to know that the most seasoned of believers still have the temptation to give up hope. And I had coffee with a guy named Shelby who goes to our church. And Shelby, he rides motocross, and so this is like a picture of him. He's very, very good. Sponsored, really cool guy. And when I met him at the coffee shop, this is the first time I got to really interact and meet with him. And so we'd been trying to set up a time to get together for a couple weeks. And so when I saw him, I went over, hey man, hey Shelby, how you doing? Man, you are a busy guy. That's what I said to him. And I put my hand out, busy guy, and he looked at me square in the eyes as he shook my hand, and he said, isn't it funny, perception versus reality? And I kind of let it go for a second until a little bit later on, he brought it back up again. And he goes, yeah, I'm busy because I have like realty and things like that, but I haven't ridden in forever. And I go, well, it's crazy because whenever I look on Facebook and we're Facebook friends, I see pictures of you and you're riding. I feel like you're riding all the time. And he goes, yeah, it's funny. I actually had a kid message me the other day and say, how do I have your life? And I meant, what? What do you mean have your life? He said, yeah, he wanted to know how he can ride every single day and do nothing else. And Shelby's like, that's not what I do. He's like, I haven't ridden in months. And I go, well, then why do you post all the time? Because I post all the time because I love what I do so much. And I just love posting. And so we talked a little bit more of that whole idea of perception and reality. And we do the same thing. I'm guilty of it. I just did it to him. I said, oh, it looks like you're busy. And he goes, well, I'm busy, but not. Like, yes and no. No busier than you. But we do this with other people in their walk with God. Or other people in the relationship with their spouse. Or other people in the relationship with their kids. Or other people in how cool they are or how not cool they are. We do this all the time with everyone. We play a weird comparison game versus perception versus reality of, well, this is how I perceive you, so this must be your reality, and the reality is that's just not the truth. And we do it with each other's faith. So I have an assignment, a little homework for us. I know we don't like homework, but it's still going to be presented to you. Ready? That maybe there's somebody in your life that you've been perceiving to have it either all together or everything's good to go. But I'll be honest with you, there's nothing more encouraging than when somebody comes up and just pours in and just loves on me or my spouse. Danae, one of the things that was really hard about being a pastor's wife, and I'm not, this is weird, I'm just going to say it this way, ready? I'm not looking for any sort of encouragement from me or Danae or anything like that. Ready? I just want to give you perspective. But being a pastor's wife for Danae, it was hard because no one ever poured into her. Because everyone thought she had it together. And one of the things that really sparked our move from San Diego to here, and I didn't know about this until later, was that she was lonely. And if you would look at her Facebook page and you look at her Instagram and you look at all the things in her life and the people she gets to hang out with, she was lonely. And it's because she was giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and nobody was pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. That we have a perception versus the reality. And there are people around you that need your encouragement. And I get it. We need others' encouragement. And that's what I want to instill in part of our DNA here at Stonehill, is that we encourage each other, that we pour into each other's lives, and that we follow Emmanuel, God with us, that we would be relational the way that He is relational. So here's your homework. Make someone blush. Got it? Make someone blush. Make someone tell you to stop being encouraging. Stop. No, stop. Okay, I get it. Stop. Make someone stop you. Blow their mind. Go take them out to coffee and tell them 20 things that you love about them. Tell them a specific story of how they wowed you because of their work or because of their character. Make them blush. If you accept this homework, say, I do. So half of you do. The other half, I'll pray for you, okay? Perception versus reality. So storms are going to come. So we battle them. We could give in. We could give up, but we could give in. And this is the one that I think really is what we're called to do. This is it. Let's do this. Not that there's anything wrong with battling it. And to be honest with you, I've been places where I want to give up. But let's give in to what God is doing. And so, let's read a little bit more. Look at chapter 27, verse 21. It says this. It says, after they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, now I just want to contextualize for a second, ready? So Paul, still a prisoner, nothing has changed in the time frame here, right? Still a prisoner, not any sort of rank, obviously, on the ship. So at this point, pretty normal guy. I mean, likely he had some clout. This was Paul, so no doubt there were some rumors going around about who Paul was. And then obviously, even as a Pharisee, before he was a Christian, he would persecute Christians, right? And he was a very, very smart man, very, very high in his rankings, all right? And so no doubt they knew who Paul was, but in this moment, he was a nobody, really a nobody, literally in shackles, chains, prisoner. And he stood up and he said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete." I mean, who doesn't love a good gloat, right? I can't say I would have done anything different than what Paul does right here, right? He has his chance, he stands on the soapbox and he says, "I told you so," all right? "Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss." But then he shifts gears. After he says, "I told you so," "But now I urge you to keep up your," what? Courage. "Because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed." Not one of you will be lost. Not one of you is going to die. Giving up is not the same as giving in. It's not the same as giving in. Giving up is saying, fine, and we throw a fit, and we pout, and we quit, and we go in a corner, and we take our toys, and we say, "I'm not playing anymore." That's giving up. Raise your hand if you've done that before. Everyone should be raising their hand. We've all done that before. We've all taken our toys and gone home. That's not giving in. Giving in is saying, "Okay, God, I fought. I'm trying. I've done everything I know how to. Would you take control? Would you do this for me? I don't know what's next. I don't know how to do it next, but I need you to come in and take control." And for us, what that means is that we trust that God's with us, which I know sounds very nebulous. It's like, hey, just trust him. But it has to begin with trust. There's a great book out there by Stephen Covey, and if you're a reader, you should write this down, Speed of Trust. It's a great book. And it talks about how trust is the foundation of relationships. That if you don't have trust in relationships, then you don't have a relationship. And so we have to begin with trust. And trusting that God actually has our back, that he is for us, he's not against us, that he wants good for our lives. And if we start there, then other things begin to happen for us. Our relationship with him begins to grow. We're able to foster a better relationship with the people around us because we trust God and we trust others. And trust, again, is a big, big thing. Look again in the story now. Look at verse 23. It says, last night, and this is Paul, so he's given this rousing encouragement, the speech to the men, right? Last night, an angel of the Lord, of God, to whom I belong and to whom I serve, stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So, keep up your courage, men. For I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me." Just as he told me. Look, it's always hard to see beyond the storm. It's always hard. And in the story of Amanda and Josh and Rowan, this is what she writes. So similar to what's happened here. Sick heart, saving heart. Needing heart, new heart. Fading heart, future heart. This experience has been excruciating, but not for nothing. The strain and stretch of an emotional torture device saved only by seeking his face full on. He twists and turns in ways we can never understand until a glance over our shoulder at what's behind. It all makes sense then. I can't believe in August my life was so different. I blinked and it's eggnog season, each day feeling longer than the next, and yet a mere 2 months, here we are. It feels like we're riding the highway with signs that point home. This picture was taken just a few days ago, right after Rowan received a heart transplant. We're never going to fully understand why God allows us to go through the things that he allows us to. And I love the way she puts it. Again, he twists and he turns in ways we can never understand until a glance over my shoulder, a look at what's behind. Hindsight's always 20/20. When we look back, we're going to be able to see some of the reasons why God allows the things to happen. And I imagine, even in the storms you've gone through in the past, you probably could look back, and if you did a little due diligence, you'd begin to see how God works in and through those things. And so my encouragement is that you would do that. You'd see that he is still God with us in it and through it. And then I have one last piece of encouragement. It's not super encouraging, though. You ready? Mind the nevertheless of giving in. What do you mean? So Paul, he gives this rousing speech to the men. Take courage, men. No one's going to die. And then he says this. Ready? Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. Come on, man. Let's take courage. We're still going to crash. That's what he's saying here. I mean, I give some good speeches, but I've never entered one like that and gotten applause. Like, it's crazy what's going on here. But that's life. Hey, guys, you're going to go through it, and you're going to survive it, and God is with you. It's still going to be difficult. It's still going to be hard. You're still going to fight with your spouse. Your kids are still going to not like you. Yay! But he is still Emmanuel. And he is still with you. Can I pray for courage for you? Whether it be in the now, whether it be in the future, maybe even in your past, you're still holding on to the things that's keeping you from seeing the blessing in it. Father, thank you for what you've done this morning, the encouragement that you've given us, the perspective you've given us, in and through your word and through what happened with Paul and with Luke as they traveled and caught in the storm. Lord, I know that there are many of us going through storms right now. Many of us going through hard times. There are many of us that are tempted to give up our hope. There are many of us that have already given up our hope. There are many of us, Lord, that are going to go through storms. There are many of us, Lord, that are going to seek your face and question where you are and wonder why you're not intervening. Lord, there are many of us that are going through it. And I ask, Lord, in Jesus' name, that you would give us the courage that we need. That you would give us the wisdom that we need. And just like Amanda wrote, that despite it all, we would seek you face full blast, facing you, charging after you. Lord, may that be how we give into you. That despite the situations and the circumstances and the scenarios of life, Lord, we would seek you wholeheartedly. We would seek you in prayer. That we would read your word and be inspired. That we would have people around us, people that are before us, beside us, behind us, that would be helping us to stay on the straight and narrow. But in and through it all, Emmanuel, God with us. Help us to see it. Help us to acknowledge it, believe it, live it. In Jesus' name. Amen.